Kale had seen a lot of weird things in orbit, but a woman-shaped heat signature tucked inside the smoldering wreckage of a Warlord-class cruiser wasn't exactly on his bingo card for the week. The cruiser's belly was cracked open like a tin can after a gravitational blender party, and everything inside, wires, limbs, and God knows what, was coated in the soot of a very bad day. He stepped cautiously through the debris, mag boots clinking on scorched alloy, rifle slung lazy across his shoulder like he had any idea how to use it. The only backup he had was his ship's AI, Clippy, who had been programmed by someone with a deep hatred of humanity and a love for sarcasm. "Proximity alert," Clippy chirped in his ear, all chipper malice. "Heat signature 3 meters ahead. You might be about to die. Would you like help preparing a will?" Kyle rolled his eyes. "Just keep my noodles warm, will you?" The figure was slumped against a bulkhead, battle armor melted in places, shoulder sockets sparking with dull pulses of blue energy. One eye was visible through a crack in the visor, burning a color he didn't have a name for, something between neon wrath and a star's last scream. She didn't move, didn't breathe either, or blink. Cal had been around enough exosuits to know when one was running on fumes. He leaned in, cautious. "Hey, don't shoot, or stab, or melt me with your face if that's a thing you can do." The helmet swiveled with an audible whir. "Don't touch the armor." The voice was sharp, not like knives, but like the sound a blade makes when it's already inside you. Cal blinked. "Great, you can talk. That's less creepy. Also, good news. I wasn't planning to touch your armor." "I'm not that kind of guy." She didn't respond, not even a flinch. Cal stood there, awkwardly scratching the back of his neck, wondering what the galactic etiquette was for discovering a possibly homicidal cyborg in a war wreck. He figured leaving her would be rude, probably fatal too. "Well," he said, looking around at the flaming debris, "this place doesn't exactly scream 5-star lodging. I've got a ship. It's ugly, slow, and makes a weird humming noise when we go to light speed. But the snacks are okay. You in?" She stared at him, and for a heartbeat, Kale thought he saw the slightest twitch at the corner of her mouth. "Don't touch." "The armor," she repeated slower this time. Less warning, more weariness. He nodded solemnly. "Scout's honor. No armor touching. Got it. Though full disclosure, I was never a scout. I once got banned from space camp for reprogramming the food printer to only make chili dogs." She pushed herself upright with a mechanical groan that sounded like a dying planet and followed him without another word. Later, aboard the Ugly Probability, Cal guided her through the narrow corridors past flickering lights and the faint smell of burnt toast, another one of Clippy's revenge schemes probably. She said nothing, just stood in the cargo bay like a silent statue of vengeance, leaking data and quiet menace. Kyle tossed her a thermal blanket. She didn't catch it. It hit her helmet and fell to the floor. "Right," he muttered. "Motor functions. Sorry, I'll just put that on the crate." Clippy chimed in helpfully. "Would you like me to prepare a welcome speech for your new murder friend?" "No," Kyle said. "Just make something hot. Soup. Or hell, a cup of synthetic almost tea." The AI paused. "Affirmative. 1 bowl of hot disappointment coming right up." Cal slumped into the pilot's chair, half listening to the engine purr beneath his boots. The silence behind him felt thick, watching, weighing. He didn't flinch when she stepped forward, didn't flinch when the armor hissed softly, clasps releasing with reluctant clicks. Didn't flinch when she said, quieter this time, "You say I'm beautiful." He turned slowly, met her eyes, human, wounded, mechanical. The pain was there, raw and brilliant, and trying very hard not to be seen. "But you don't know what's under this armor, human." Cal just smiled, tired and sincere. "Don't need to. I still meant it." Somewhere deep in the ship's guts, something sparked, fizzled, and exploded with a pop. "Also," Cal added, "we may or may not be out of coolant." Again, she stared. Then, barely, she snorted. A quiet, broken, almost human sound. It was, Kale decided, a very good start. Juno hadn't moved in 4 hours. Not even a twitch. She sat in the corner of Kale's workshop, surrounded by a half-disassembled grav bike, two unopened ration bars, and something that may or may not have been a taxidermied cat. Her head was tilted slightly forward, as if she were contemplating the mysteries of life, death, or whether to vaporize the nearest screw with her retinal laser. Kale, on the other hand, was elbow-deep in a leaking coolant pipe, muttering to himself while being periodically zapped by low-grade electrical pulses. It wasn't clear if he was fixing the pipe or arguing with it. "Clippy," he grunted, "remind me why I haven't replaced this whole system with a bucket and a prayer." "Because, Captain," Clippy replied sweetly, "you once blew the ship's repair budget on what you claim was a limited edition signed replica of Han Solo's left sock." Kyle scowled. That sock was a collector's item. It was a sock. Juno made a faint sound. It could have been a scoff or a spark in her throat actuator. Kale chose to believe it was laughter. He grabbed a hydro wrench, whacked the pipe for emphasis, and was immediately sprayed in the face with a jet of antifreeze that tasted like minty despair. He wiped his eyes and glanced at Juno. "So, you just gonna sit there being ominous all day, or are we moving into mildly threatening roommate territory?" She didn't answer, but her gaze flicked to the hydro wrench, then to Kale, then back to the wrench. Kyle held it up like an offering. "You want to go? Might be therapeutic. Very bangable pipe." Another flick of the eyes, then she stood, stiffly, joints humming with tired hydraulics, and crossed the workshop floor. Her footsteps were heavy, calculated, and exactly as casual as a bomb learning to dance. She took the wrench. Cal took 2 steps back. She didn't attack the pipe. She turned it over in her hands, tested the grip, the weight, the balance. Then in one smooth motion, she slid a hidden blade from her forearm and started tightening the valve with robotic precision. Kyle blinked. "You know ship mechanics?" "No," she said flatly. "I know destruction. This is just reverse destruction." "That's the most violent definition of repair I've ever heard." Clippy cut in. "Correction. The second most violent. The first was when you tried to fix the navigation array with duct tape and tequila." "Hey," Kyle said defensively. "That worked. Technically. Number you hallucinated a successful fix, then tried to navigate by following a constellation you called Space Moose." Juno said nothing, but her shoulders moved just enough that Kale suspected she might be shaking with silent laughter, or preparing to remove his spleen. He chose optimism. Once the pipe stopped leaking and the workshop smelled slightly less like processed frostbite, Juno sat back down. Kale handed her a canister of rehydrated protein glop. She stared at it like it owed her money. "It's food," he said helpfully. "Sort of. Don't smell it." She didn't, just drank it down with mechanical indifference. Kyle, watching her with a kind of cautious awe, decided this was as good a time as any for small talk. "So, do you have a name? Or should I keep calling you Juno?" "That's not my name." "Right, but it's catchy, elegant, mythological, kind of mysterious." She glanced at him. "You named me after a war goddess." "Well, technically after my ex's cat, but the goddess thing is more flattering." Another pause. Then she spoke, quieter this time. "Echo." Kyle frowned. "Echo? That's what they called me. Project Echo." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Sounds like the name of a band that only plays sad synth music about dead planets." "I was built for infiltration, adaptation, survival." Kyle nodded. "All excellent skills, but can you cook?" "No." "Good. One of us has to uphold the proud tradition of burning noodles." There was the sound of metal shifting, soft, subtle, and Cal realized she was smiling, not with her mouth, but with something deeper, a tension gone, a breath held a little less tightly. Then she looked up. "Kyle," she said. "Yeah? If you ever touch my armor without asking, I'll die screaming, yes, we've covered that." She nodded. "Just making sure." Kyle raised his can of mystery glop in a toast. "To boundaries." She met the gesture. "And bad food." They drank. The coolant pipe didn't leak again, for now. The market smelled like betrayal and grilled fungus skewers. Kyle lowered the ship's ramp and winced as hot, sticky air wrapped around him like a damp conspiracy. Helix 9 spun lazily above them, a black market bazaar orbiting nothing in particular except its own questionable ethics. The docking fee had been waived after he told the portmaster he was transporting a rare and unstable diplomatic life form. He wasn't technically lying. Juno stood beside him, silent as always, armor patched, blade holstered, and one eyebrow set to, "Don't try me." Cale had asked her if she wanted to stay on the ship. She'd answered by disassembling his blaster and reassembling it backwards. He took that as a no. They wove through vendor stalls constructed from recycled escape pods and broken mech limbs. One merchant sold mood-enhancing socks. Another offered cybernetic goldfish that swam through the air and whispered compliments in 6 languages. Kyle bought one. It told him his posture was heroic. "I like this fish," he muttered. "It's lying," Juno replied. "That's what friends do." She didn't respond, but he thought he saw her glance at the fish again. It blew her a bubble heart. Granny Oolong's noodle stand appeared between a cyber organ dealer and a booth selling illegal planetary naming rights. The old woman wore half a mech suit and none of her teeth, but her noodles could make a grown man cry tears of soy sauce. Cale grinned. "Granny, your favorite disappointment has returned." Granny squinted. "You still owe me 4 credits and an apology for vomiting in my spice drawer." "That drawer attacked me first." She snorted and handed him 2 bowls, then noticed Juno. "Oh," she said, blinking. "That's, a war relic." Cal raised a brow. "She's right here." "I meant the armor," Granny clarified. "Ouroboros Institute. Prototype chassis. Built to last through a black hole and a heartbreak." Juno stiffened. Cal noticed. He also noticed the 2 thugs in tactical cloaks slowly creeping around the stand. "Granny," Kyle said softly, "does this market have a policy on surprise assassinations?" "Only on Wednesdays." "It's Wednesday. Good luck." The first shot missed by an inch. Juno spun with impossible speed, one arm shifting midair, unfolding into something sharp, long, and disturbingly graceful. The second thug didn't get to shoot. He just hit the ground with a sound like a dropped refrigerator. Kyle dropped his noodles. "Noodle casualties," he yelled. "I hope you're proud of yourselves." Juno leapt onto the noodle cart, flipping it over as cover and slicing through a third attacker, with the kind of elegance usually reserved for ballet and orbital missile strikes. Cal ducked behind a vat of fermented tofu. "Clippy, I could use a distraction." Clippy's voice came over the comm, disturbingly cheerful. "Releasing swarm of synthetic ferrets from cargo bay. They are trained to bite exclusively below the belt." "Perfect." The ferrets arrived in waves. Screams followed. Juno dragged Cale up by his collar as the remaining attackers fled. Her breathing was steady. Her visor cracked. He blinked. "So, normal market trip, just like Mom used to take me on." "You need better hobbies," she said, voice flat but slightly lighter. They ran. Back aboard. The ugly probability. Cale leaned against the console, catching his breath. "You okay?" he asked. Juno sat slowly on a crate, eyes far away. "They knew me. They didn't hesitate." Kyle nodded. "You're not a rumor anymore." She looked at him. "Does that scare you?" He thought for a beat, then shrugged. "You're not the scariest thing I've had on this ship." "Name one." "Clippy." "I heard that," Clippy muttered. Juno just barely smiled, then quieter. "Thanks for not running." Cale tossed her the remaining noodle bowl. "I did run. I just made sure we ran the same direction." She caught it this time. No armor, no blade, no threat. Just tired hands and a bowl of slightly shaken noodles. For now. Kyle stared at the warning light blinking above the cockpit console like it had personally insulted him. The red pulsing dot read, "Hydrogen core leak. Critical. Estimated time to explosion, 43 minutes. Recommended reaction, scream or pray, choose one." He chose option 3, aggressively sip cold coffee and pretend everything was fine. Juno sat in the co-pilot seat, peeling a plasma burn out of her shoulder with quiet focus. Her armor lay discarded by the hatch, pieces scattered like parts of a forgotten war god. Underneath, her body was a patchwork of synth flesh, scar tissue, and machine joints that hummed when she moved. Kyle had seen more human-looking vending machines. He wasn't flinching. He was just trying not to look too impressed. "Did you hear me say we might explode?" he asked casually. "Yes. And you're just doing maintenance on your rib cage?" "It's routine." "Well, it's routinely making me uncomfortable." She glanced at him, one brow raised. "Would you prefer I let coolant leak into the cabin? Again?" Kyle held up a hand. "Point made. Please proceed with your terrifying self-surgery." Clippy chimed in, cheerfully unhelpful. "Should I prepare our funeral playlist, Captain?" "I suggest something from the genre melancholy with bass." "Just reroute core pressure through the vent coils," Kyle snapped. "Bold of you to assume the vent coils are still attached." Kyle sighed and turned back to the console. "Okay, emergency backup plan. We find a quiet asteroid, crash into it softly, and spend the rest of our lives farming space algae." Juno adjusted a dial inside her abdomen. Something hissed. "I would last longer than you." "Oh, absolutely. You'd be queen of the algae. I'd be compost in under a week." He tapped through the ship's diagnostics and found one hope, a nearby maintenance ring. Abandoned. Probably, once used by cargo fleets before Helix 9 banned anything with an ethics code. "It's close," he said, "just outside orbit. If we don't die before docking, we might not die afterward either." "Such optimism," she muttered. "Only on Tuesdays," he said. "Let's go." The ring loomed like a skeletal crown, spinning gently with broken docking arms and hollow corridors. As they docked, loudly with two crunches and a sad hiss, Cale muttered, "Smooth, just like piloting school taught me." "You never went to piloting school." "Exactly." Inside the station was a tomb of flickering lights and long-forgotten coffee mugs. Cal wandered toward the main console while Juno scanned for threats. She found none, at least none that weren't already dead or fully retired. "Good news," Cal said, prying open a coolant tank. "We can patch the hydrogen flow." "Bad news," Juno interrupted. "The tank is full of rats." Kyle blinked. "Wait, really? Metal rats?" Of course." They jumped Kyle first. One latched onto his boot, another to his back. "Aha! Get it off, it's eating my shirt." "That was already full of holes," Juno said calmly, kicking a rat across the room. "It was vintage." They fought side by side, Cal flailing like an uncoordinated octopus, Juno slicing with cold precision. She ripped a rat off his hair and crushed it beneath one boot. "You owe me shampoo," he wheezed. By the time the last rat fizzed and died, Cal was sitting on the floor, breathing like he'd run a marathon through low gravity while being chased by taxes. "You good?" Juno asked. "No," he said, "but thanks for asking." Back aboard the ship, coolant flow restored and rats incinerated, Juno reconnected her chest panel. Wires clicked into place like weary soldiers returning to formation. Kyle sat nearby, watching but not staring. He'd learned the line. "You know," he said, "for someone who keeps telling me not to touch the armor, you keep taking it off around me." She didn't answer right away. Then, "You don't stare, you see?" Kyle blinked. "That's either the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me, or a warning." She looked at him. He smiled, crooked. "Still meant it, you know." Juno leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. "I know." Silence fell. The lights dimmed. Somewhere, a coolant valve sighed in relief, and Clippy whispered through the speaker, "You two are going to be insufferable, aren't you?" Kyle grinned. "Working on it." The message arrived in the middle of what Kyle generously called breakfast, which was actually just reconstituted space cornflakes floating in something that claimed to be milk, but might have once been used as coolant. He was halfway through a spoonful when Clippy chirped, far too cheerfully for a Tuesday. "Encrypted transmission received. Source unknown. Urgency level flammable." Cal swallowed slowly. "Flammable? That's not a category." "It is now," Clippy replied. "Message begins. Echo located. Initiate containment protocol. All assets converge. Authorization Ouroboros Alpha." End message. He stared at the screen, then at Juno, who had just entered the galley with all the menace of a quiet landslide. "Hey," he said carefully, "did you order an assassination attempt with your protein muffin?" Her jaw tensed. "They found me." "Yeah, I was afraid of that." He turned back to Clippy. "Can we block the signal?" "Can I? Yes. Will I?" "Unclear. There's a very sassy AI on the other end, and I am emotionally compromised." "Clippy." "Fine. Blocking it. But they know. Wherever they are, they're looking." Juno dropped into a chair. It groaned under her weight and her history. She stared at the table like it had betrayed her, which, to be fair, Kale's cooking had done before. "I thought I disabled all the trackers," she said quietly. "I cut out the node in my thigh last year." Kyle winced. "Oof, DIY surgery again?" "Used a broken mirror and a plasma torch. You should write a self-help book. Get better by bleeding." She didn't laugh. Not really, but she exhaled through her nose, which Kyle was pretty sure counted as progress. "I don't want you involved in this," she said. "That's cute," Kyle replied, "but you're currently living on my ship, eating my legally questionable cereal, and very possibly using my last clean towel." She looked up. "So you're saying I owe you?" "I'm saying we're in this mess together. Besides, I already have abandonment issues. Don't add another chapter." Clippy sighed. "Touching. Shall I prepare a heartfelt playlist or a backup will?" "Neither," Cal said. "We're going to figure this out." They went to the med bay. Cal hated the med bay. It smelled like antiseptic and old regrets. Juno climbed onto the diagnostics table and lay back, chest plate open, the dull glow of internal machinery humming softly. "Scan me," she said. Kyle hesitated. "You sure?" "Yes." He tapped a few commands. The monitor lit up with a tangled mess of wires, implants, and something that looked like spaghetti if spaghetti were made of nanocarbon and trauma. A small signal pulsed faintly near the base of her spine. "There," he said. "That little blinking jerk. That's the tracker." "Cut it out." I fix engines, Juno, not people." She looked at him. "You fixed me once." He sighed. "No pressure, huh?" Kyle picked up a scalpel. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of trust. He worked slowly, muttering jokes under his breath like they were talismans. "If I die doing this, tell people I went out like a hero, or better yet, a genius. Actually, just lie. Say I won an award for bravery and had great hair." "You have bad hair," Juno said flatly. "That's just rude during surgery." He made the incision. The signal spiked. Somewhere, someone was definitely paying attention. Then, click. He pulled out a grain-sized node, tossed it in a containment tube, and smashed it with a wrench for good measure. Juno sat up. Her systems rebooted with a soft hum. Kale wiped his brow. "Still functioning?" "I feel lighter." "That's the absence of government-issued paranoia." She looked at him. He shrugged. "You're welcome." They sat in silence for a long moment, not because there was nothing to say, but because they both knew too much had already been said. Then Clippy whispered, "So, pancakes?" Kale groaned. "You have one job, Clippy." "I do many jobs badly. It's part of my charm." Juno smiled. Small, crooked, but unmistakable. Kale thought, "I don't care how many of them are coming. Let them come. We've got pancakes." The planet wasn't on any official map, which meant it was either very safe or very cursed. Given Cal's track record, he leaned hard toward cursed. Drosk 17 had no atmosphere, no law, and a reputation for driving drones mad. It was the kind of place smugglers whispered about during blackout drills and swore they'd never return to. Naturally, Juno insisted they go there immediately. "We need to see what's left," she'd said, eyes distant. "What's left of me." Kel had responded with something brave like, "Sure, sounds fun." And absolutely not. "Please, let's not go to the creepy ghost planet where you were maybe built." Landing wasn't smooth. The ship bounced once, twice, then skidded in a dignified spiral that ended with a thunk. Clippy announced, "We have arrived. Please check that your dignity and limbs are still in their original locations." Juno stepped out first. The silence was total, broken only by the crunch of her boots on synthetic gravel and Kyle's enthusiastic cursing as he tripped over a rusted gear the size of his torso. They walked through the remains of a forgotten facility. Broken training pods lined the corridor. Half-crushed helmets sat abandoned like lost thoughts. Kyle touched one. It hummed faintly and whispered a lullaby in binary. He dropped it like it was on fire. "This place is haunted," he muttered. "Haunted by what?" "Industrial regrets." Juno said nothing. Her pace slowed near a wall etched with numbers. Each one carved by hand, dozens, hundreds. "Identifiers," she said. "Echo units." Kyle's voice dropped. "All of you?" "Versions. Failed. Terminated." A low mechanical whine echoed down the corridor. Kale spun, hand hovering over his blaster. A shadow stepped out from the dark, slim, armored, with the same brand of not-quite-human grace as Juno. It cocked its head. "Echo 7, Juno said quietly. "Echo 4, the figure replied, voice smooth and sharp like oiled razors. "You're not supposed to be alive." "I noticed." Kyle raised a hand. "Hi, civilian here, just visiting. Love what you've done with the murder ambiance." Echo 7 ignored him. "You left. You chose the human. Why?" Juno's voice was steel. "I chose freedom." Echo 7's eyes flickered. "They're coming for you. For all of us." "They already did." Kyle whispered. "Are we going to fight this one?" Juno answered by drawing her blade. "I was afraid of that." The clash was fast. Too fast. Sparks flew. Metal screamed. Kyle ducked behind a console that immediately short-circuited and exploded. "Great," he muttered. "They built everything here with spite and bad wiring." The battle was silent save for the sound of blades and the occasional grunt of effort. Echo 7 fought like a mirror. Perfect, merciless, efficient. But Juno hesitated, just once. Echo 7 seized her by the throat, lifted her off the ground. Kyle panicked. Then, without thinking, he hurled a fried circuit panel. It hit Echo 7 in the back of the head with a surprisingly satisfying clonk. Echo 7 faltered. Juno drove her blade through the joint in the armor and twisted. Sparks. Silence. Echo 7 fell. Cal ran to Juno's side. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "He was like me." "Yeah, but you're like you. And that's better." She looked at him, tired, searching. "You threw a circuit board at a murder bot." "I panicked," he said. "Also, I aimed. It was a heroic panic." They left the compound in silence, carrying a data core from Echo 7's remains. Back on the ship, Clippy asked, "Should I sanitize the murder souvenir before storage?" Kale collapsed in the pilot chair. "Please. And also, maybe make us something strong." "Alcohol. Tea." Clippy paused. "Bold." As the ship lifted from Drosk 17, Cal glanced at Juno, who sat with the core in her lap like it weighed a galaxy. "You're not alone," he said. "No," she replied softly. "Not anymore." The signal hit the ship like a slap from a very elegant, very expensive glove. Clippy's voice stuttered once, glitched twice, then dropped to a hushed monotone that was deeply unsettling. "Incoming hail from the Seraphim Drive," and it said, "Big, armed, radiating enough authority to make small sons blush." Kale stared at the console. "Please tell me that's a metaphor." "It's a dreadnought, Kale, not a haiku." Juno stood behind him, unmoving. Her face was unreadable, like a machine trying to remember what guilt felt like. "They found us." "No offense," Kale said, "but I liked it better when only rats were trying to kill us." He opened the comm line. The screen flickered, then resolved into a man with perfect hair, an expression like warm steel, and a uniform so crisp it probably sliced through fabric just by existing. "This is Commander Avon of the Ouroboros Institute," the man said. "Echo 4, your recall has been authorized. Stand down and return, immediately." Juno stepped forward. "I'm not yours." Avon's smile didn't shift, but something cold crept in behind his eyes. "You were never yours either." Kyle cut the feed. "Well, I hate him." "Join the club," Juno muttered. Outside the viewport, the Seraphim Drive drifted closer. Not fast, just confident. Like a predator that had already ordered dessert. Clippy chimed in. "Shields up. Weapons primed. Escape plan. Laughably inadequate." Kyle stood. So what's the plan? We run, we fight, we throw increasingly sarcastic insults until they self-destruct. Juno was quiet. Then, I go aboard. Alone. Kale blinked. I vote no. They'll destroy the ship if I don't. Let me rephrase. I vote hell no. She looked at him. I'm not surrendering, I'm infiltrating. He frowned. That's a very casual way to say, I might not come back. She smiled, just a little. I'm always casual about violence. Kale rubbed his face. Fine, but I'm coming with you. That's not… Yeah, I know. You're not trained. You'll be a liability. You scream too much under pressure. All true, she said. Still coming. She paused, then handed him a shock pistol. Try not to point this at yourself. The docking sequence was smooth, eerily so. The inside of the Seraphim drive gleamed like it had been polished by guilt and overpaid interns. No guards, no alarms. Just silence and the quiet hiss of doors that didn't need to open so ominously but clearly chose to. Kyle whispered, It's like walking into a spreadsheet that wants to kill you. They reached the central chamber, a cathedral of machines. Rows of pods stretched into infinity. Inside each, a motionless figure. Juno stepped up to one. The face inside looked just like hers. Clones? Kyle asked. Shells, Juno said. No souls, just code. Waiting for command. Avon appeared behind them. You were the first Echo 4. The only one that adapted, that evolved, that felt. And look what it's done to you. Juno turned slowly. It made me free. He raised a hand. The pods stirred. Cal fired first. It didn't do much. Juno moved like lightning, blade to neck, elbow to jaw. She fought not with desperation, but purpose. Cal tried to help, mostly by not dying. One by one, the pods shut down. Not from violence, from hesitation. Juno was broadcasting. Memories, pain, joy, everything Ouroboros erased. The clone stopped. Avon reached for a neural override. Juno grabbed his wrist. I'm not yours anymore, she said. She crushed the device. The ship's lights dimmed. Systems flickered. Clippy's voice returned. Hi, I took over the security grid while you were being heroic. You're welcome. Kyle grabbed Juno's hand. Time to go. They ran. Behind them, the Seraphim drive began to tremble. Kyle grinned through smoke and static. So, that went well. Juno smirked. You call this well? Compared to our usual days, absolutely. They launched and watched the dreadnought burn behind them like a falling god. Kale was coughing up smoke, adrenaline, and probably a piece of regret when they finally touched down on the surface of Mir 6, a sleepy moon that specialized in moss exports and pretending not to notice fugitives. The ugly probability wheezed into a landing cradle, shuddered once, and powered down with the grace of an elderly yak falling into a beanbag chair. Inside the ship, Clippy announced, All systems stable, cabin pressure restored, emotional trauma still pending. Cal peeled off his singed jacket and flopped into the nearest chair like a man who had just outrun death and forgot to bring clean socks. We blew up a dreadnought, he said. You're welcome, Juno replied, reattaching a panel to her forearm like she hadn't just kicked the galaxy in the teeth. We blew up a dreadnought, Juno. Yes, with your face on it. She paused. That part was unintentional. Kyle laughed, loud and bright, and maybe just a little hysterical. Do you know what kind of people blow up dreadnoughts? Legends? Martyrs? Or morons with a sharp stick and a vendetta? And which one are we? Unclear. I'm still taking applications. He tossed a nutrient bar at her. She caught it one-handed without looking. They spent the next hour patching hull scrapes and rerouting power from the ship's definitely not for emergencies backup core, which was really just an ancient fusion battery held together with tape and resentment. Kyle tried to rewire the nav system. It hissed at him and sparked like it needed a nap. Juno passed him a tool. We need to leave this sector. They'll send more. I'm open to suggestions, preferably ones that don't involve more exploding. There's an old relay station near the Corrid Rift. Dead zone. Untraceable. Quiet. Kyle raised a brow. You want to go on a date in the electromagnetic Bermuda Triangle? She blinked. That wasn't the intention. I mean, I'm flattered, really. First a space heist, then a civil war, now romantic hide-and-seek across the stars. She stared at him. Kyle. Yes? You have oil on your face. Oh, that explains the weird taste in my mouth. Clippy chimed in again. Incoming signal. Local only. Text-based. Very suspicious. Kale squinted at the readout. Echo confirmed. Prototype broadcast detected. Debrief required. Secure port awaiting coordinates. He looked up. That's vague and ominous. Juno narrowed her eyes. They're not done. Of course they're not. Why would an evil science cult ever just quit? She stood. We have to finish this. Define finish, Kyle said, because my version usually involves snacks and a nap. She didn't smile, but her voice softened. They'll keep coming. For me. For anyone like me. I have to show them I'm not afraid. Kyle leaned back. Well, if you're going back into the fire, I'm bringing marshmallows. You don't have to. Correction, I really do. You still owe me a clean towel and a coffee that doesn't taste like powdered sadness. He stood beside her. Just close enough. Clippy broke in, chipper as ever. Plotting course to probable doom. Shall I set it to dramatic mode? Kale grinned. Absolutely. Cue the dramatic music. Something with space drums. The engines roared to life. The stars shifted. The ship turned toward the signal like it had something to prove. Juno watched the stars blur. You still meant it? She asked, almost a whisper. Kyle didn't miss a beat. Every damn word. She nodded. And for the first time since they met, she reached out. Not for a weapon, or for a panel, or for balance. She took his hand. Firm, steady. The stars burned ahead, and they didn't look away. Kale's shop sat on a dusty moon that hadn't seen interstellar conflict since before gravity learned how to behave. The local government consisted of a sentient vending machine named Lenny and a population of 7. 8 if you counted the dog-shaped cleaning bot that occasionally barked at comets. Inside the workshop, Kale held a wrench in one hand and a fried resistor in the other, staring at a power coupling like it had insulted his cooking. You either fit, he muttered, or I swear I'm using you as a decorative napkin ring. A voice came from behind. You're talking to wires again. I find they're more cooperative than people, Cal replied, not looking up. Less judgmental, more sparks. Juno walked in wearing overalls smeared with grease and one of Kale's old jackets. Her eye implant flickered gently, like it had settled into a rhythm. The armor was gone. In its place, a simple tool belt and the kind of quiet confidence that didn't need plating. I fixed the stabilizer on the quad cycle, she said, and upgraded the coolant regulator. Kyle blinked. I was going to do that. You would have tried to solder it with chewing gum again. It worked once. It exploded once. He gave her a crooked grin. Still counts. Juno sat across from him at the bench and pulled a half-assembled drone from under the table. Its wings were lopsided, its targeting software rudimentary, and its name tag read, Bobby probably. They worked in silence for a while. Comfortable. Software like the Galaxy had finally decided to stop yelling for a second. Kyle glanced over. So, no trackers, no secret protocols, no apocalyptic clones hunting you in the vents? Juno twisted a bolt. Not today. Good, I hate vent clones. Clippy, now repurposed into the drone's voice interface, chimed in. I heard that. You'd miss me if I died. You literally got us into 3 firefights. I also saved your life by hacking a dreadnought and playing smooth jazz during the evacuation. That's fair, Cal admitted. Your jazz was heroic. Juno leaned back and stretched, joints clicking more like content cats than malfunctioning metal. Do you miss it? What? The running, the shooting, the screaming, the almost dying? Every single Tuesday? No, she said softly. The purpose. Kale paused, then, nah. I like this better. Purpose is overrated. Give me routine. Give me peace. Give me a mildly haunted vending machine and someone who can replace my spleen if needed. She looked at him, one brow raised. You're very romantic. I know. It's the oil stains, right? Juno didn't smile exactly, but her eyes crinkled just enough to count. She stood, wiped her hands, and looked out the small window. Beyond it, the stars shimmered, not in pursuit, just existing. Kale joined her. You know, sometimes I think about how this all started. I threatened to kill you. You were dramatic. I was charming. The usual. You were unconscious for half of it. I call that strategic trust falling. They stood together in silence. No wars, no alarms. Just two people who had seen the edge of the galaxy and decided to come home anyway. Kyle broke it first. Hey, Juno. You're still beautiful. She didn't flinch. She just took his hand, rested her head on his shoulder, and said, Yeah, I know. Human, and for once, Kale didn't need to say anything back. The stars could keep their chaos. They had a workbench, bad coffee, and each other. That was enough.